Mayor Horn.
Here?
Recording has started.
You want to say it again?
Alderman Kittle.
Alderman Kittle, can you hear us?
Alderman Kittle.
Just said yep.
I think he said yes.
Alderman Lindell.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Alderman Volkert.
Yes.
Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
All right. So we're all present. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah.
Can we mute them?
All right. Item number 4 is adoption of agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I'll offer a motion that we adopt the agenda.
We have a motion to adopt the agenda. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Please enter your meeting ID or audio code followed by the pound or hash sign.
Opposed?
ID or audio code followed by the pound
All
or
right, the
hash
adoption
sign.
of agenda has been passed. And we're still having some technical difficulties, so please bear with us if you're watching from home. So item number 5 is public comments. Is there anybody who wish to make a public comment? Is this microphone live? That way people at home can hear you as well. Yes, sir.
I'm going to go a little slow because it's really hard to breathe.
Yeah, we understand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wasn't really planning on being here this evening. I called my ward's representative, Craig Kittle, no less than 50 times, and I never got an answer, never got an answer machine, so here I am in person. I'd like to say good evening. My name is Nathan Mitchell. I live at 832 North Shore Drive. I live there with my wife of 18 years, Marcy. That is a stage 4 inflammatory breast cancer patient. She just had her 612th chemo infusion this morning. I also live with my 2 sons, Patrick and Christian. Patrick is the school district's mascot, an honor roll student. Christian is in a disabled category like his mom, but his affliction is autism. We have called our lakeside place a North Shore Drive home for 7 years. Our house and property and lives took severe damage when the New Richmond City employees failed to open a dam in time to accommodate rushing floodwaters from upstream. I believe there was more than adequate notice floodwaters were on the way. When communities upstream are flooding and roads are being washed out, that would be a sign to an observer that trouble is coming. When the USGS river level gauges upstream are peaking out and becoming disabled, that too would be a sign trouble is flowing this way. When the news reports immense amounts of rain fell on towns on the watershed and they are closing roads upstream, that would be a sign. Now, I called Jeremiah Went, Public Works Director, at 4:15 the night of the flood. And I advised him, the river is higher than I've ever seen it. And the entire widespread, with all its thick invasive species, was moving towards the dam. And I feared we will flood if the dam isn't opened. A little after 5, he showed up with a transit. And after helping him with measurements, he said, I have 12.5 inches for the lake to rise before it's at my door, and that just simply won't happen. I asked him directly, should I go get equipment to move dirt? Thinking I would go rent a backhoe. He said, no. I looked him straight in the eye and I asked, Jeremiah, if this was your house, what would you do? He replied, nothing, it won't flood. I had big oak logs around the fire pit. near the shore, and he advised me if it gets that high to call him back. At about 5:40, I called him again to let him know that the water was past the log and asked him if I should go rent the hoe to attempt making a dike or levee with the soil on my property to protect the house. Now, he showed up after a while, and we were feverishly hauling dirt from a hill in our yard with a wheelbarrow. We were stacking rocks, stacking sod, driving stakes, doing everything we could to make a wall. I even set up a gas pump to pump water from behind the dike to the lakeside of our makeshift berm. We were exhausted and worried. Jeremiah then showed up and brought me a box of sandbags and left. Empty sandbags. We proceeded to fill the sandbags from our once beautiful backyard and did not stop until the water reached our lakeside doors at about 9:30. We were exhausted after 4 hours of giving 100% in extreme heat. We tried to stop the water for so long, we didn't have time to prep anything inside until it was too late. At this time, the public works truck and the fire department showed up, ready to help. But it was too late. The battle was lost for us. This was especially hard for us, excuse me, because as I said in my introduction, I have a bride that's fighting for her life. She had chemo that Monday morning. I have a disabled son. The previous years of home improvements, upgrades, remodeling was at a heavy cost due to our strained budget. And I just cringe when I think of all that my family went without so we could have a nice home. The dinners out, the movies, the trips, etc., that were all sacrificed. They were all just completely wiped away, completely destroyed. Among other things, I am a survivalist. I was featured on History Channel's new series, Alone the Beast. And last fall, I went to the Arctic, and I survived for a month with no tools, no knife, lighter, tent, empty pocket survival challenge. Well, I survived my challenge, and thank God their check cleared. So I had enough money to remodel most of my home. Over the last month, I spent the money from sleeping on the frozen ground in the Arctic and digging through the snow for berries, dealing with wolves and wolverines. And as it turns out, it was just to repair my home from the flood. Due to the complete and total incompetence, in my opinion, dereliction of duty, lack of situational awareness of whoever's in charge of the dam. This might sound harsh or misplaced, but it is not. If the dam had been open a day earlier, or even the morning of the flood, we wouldn't have had our home destroyed. If the dam was open when I called Jeremiah, my home wouldn't have been destroyed. If city workers had opened the dam, I wouldn't have had to work every day since the flood to repair my home. And your employees caused me and my family to work every day to try to get the repairs done by winter. We worked through the 4th of July, every single Sunday. Our 18th wedding anniversary, we worked, and we're still far from done. My place has a big log deck, and all the footings and logs went under the water, footings that went 4 feet deep, with big 2-foot square concrete footings sunk. Had weeping willows die across my backyard because of the water gets inside the bark and it started killing all the trees. Trees we've had growing for like 6 years. My dock still needs a lot of repairs. My hot tub and my camper were also swamped in the flood waters. So we lost a lot more than just some sheetrock. We lost a remodeled downstairs, including an oak kitchen, a home gym, and even our sheathing on our outside walls swelled and had to be removed. The dumpster alone was over $700. The worst part is, if there was no dam at all, we wouldn't have been flooded. Now my place is under the mercy and control of dam operators that don't check upstream conditions, don't watch the weather apparently, and are frankly asleep at the switch. Every time a storm rolls past, my son asks me, Dad, are we going to flood again? And I'm like, what am I supposed to tell him? Because I don't know. I have no assurances that gross negligence by employees won't flood us out again next week or next month or next year. I wonder, and I ask you, why was the city protocols not followed? Why was the county emergency manager not notified until about 9:30 when the public works department hit her up for some more sandbags? Maybe if Jeremiah hadn't left me 150 sandbags, or when we lost the battle, if he'd have came and gathered up the nearly 100 bags that were left, more of my neighbors' homes could have been saved. In closing, I wonder, why should our property taxes be more per square foot than my neighbors just across the street, and we have the liability of living upstream from a dam that isn't operated properly? Our home hasn't flooded since 1965. It was the first one on North Shore Drive. I would imagine recent events will drop my home's value. And to add insult to injury, a total of 0 New Richmond residents or employees have ever stopped by to help us or check in on us since the flood. I had about 1,700 square feet of my home filled with gross bacteria-filled water 10 inches deep. And as I mentioned, we struggled hard to have a nice home. I struggled to the extreme to earn the money to correct the negligence of the city employees. And we struggle today to finish the repairs and have a safe and healthy home. So I ask, what are you going to do so you never flood my Mary Park Lake estate again? Now, I don't want a loan, because I heard that they're out there. I want someone to be held responsible, because this is a case of operator error. I've lost months of my life and tens of thousands of dollars, and my family has worked like rented mules to correct what I and all my neighbors know was dereliction of duty of the dam operator. So now the lakes fish are all dead, all choked out. They have no oxygen. The lake is nothing more than a biohazard. So I think the lake needs to be dredged to allow a place for floodwaters to go. And this would only help, of course, if the water is let out before the floodwaters arrive in town. The lake is a choked out mess, no fish, no boating, no swimming, just invasive species, snapping turtles and muck. I think it's time to take charge and hire someone vigilant to be dam operator, someone who collects data, makes predictions, errs on the side of caution, follows protocols and warns those downstream, unlike our last fiasco. So together, we can keep homes from flooding again, and we can restore the lake to something useful again, and together we can make New Richmond great again. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say, ma'am, I wish you the best in your treatments. Your health is very important to us. I just wish you the best. Mike, I'm going to throw out, I think we should meet with these, plus any of your other neighbors. So we'll set up, if you can give your phone number or contact information to Mike Darrow, the city administrator, we'll be happy to sit down and meet with you.
He has it. He's been actually. I think he's actually. Sometimes the good people.
Yeah, but I think it's good to sit down again and go over your concerns to make sure that you know you're being listened to.
When I just thank you for coming in. I'm sorry for what you had to deal with. I didn't have a personal experience quite like yours. I live on the other side of the pond here on First Street. We had the water up in our yard. It's awful feeling. It's an awful feeling. And I didn't have damage like you did at all. I'm sorry for that. I know that I'm not part of emergency government services, but this, as you said, 1965, I've heard people talk about the flood of 65. It definitely caught us. I don't know a better way to say this, off guard. I don't think we knew that there was a water event. Nobody could imagine, and that's not an excuse. I'm very sorry for what you've been through. Thank you.
Take care. Item number 6 is consent agenda. Pardon? I didn't hear. What did Craig say? Craig, did you make a motion to pass the consent agenda?
Actually, I just want to ask a question about something that's on the consent agenda.
Sure.
610, direct seller permit applications from Leonel, Amador, from Utah with Southwestern Advantage Educational Resources. Jim Jackson, Richmond, super familiar with and what he's looking to do. Both are requesting waived permit fees. What's the educational resources? Does anybody know?
Yeah, it is. We have all the materials, but it's educational products for middle school and younger age students. So different books, different tools for people who are going to be teaching their kids from home this year.
So where would... I'm sorry.
He's
Michelle.
from Utah. He's living with a family locally in Osceola, and he has been selling the products in Somerset, other areas. The background check was run on him, and the company is legitimate. He also is registered with the county.
So do they go door to door, or is it just people make contact?
He will try and make contact through word of mouth with people.
So it's people that are interested is what he's doing. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you. And I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
All right, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second to that motion?
Alderman Lindell, second.
All right,
So
we have a
Tom.
motion and a second. Do we have a third? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, carried. And item 7 is the new business. 7.1 is the mayor's reading challenge. So as we get things queued up here, obviously not having to be able to have, normally at this meeting, we are packed with people, with all of the young people in our community who have read books to meet the challenge and read stories and do all sorts of fun activities that we're going to be hearing about. It's kind of disappointing that we've had to do something different this year, but I will commend the library for stepping up to this challenge and still being able to do something. So we'll turn it over to Jennifer and. Yeah, nice.
Are we going to get the weather forecast when she's done?
I think so.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's my new thing. Well, good evening, Mayor, Council, community members, and participants of the 2020 Mayor's Reading Challenge. This is our 6th year with this great opportunity, and I want to just start out by thanking Mayor Fred Horn for his dedication and assistance with this initiative over the past few years. And like the mayor said, I can definitely say that the council chambers is just not the same this year. I miss seeing everybody. I miss all of the excitement and energy, and I'm sure I can speak on behalf of most of the aldermen as well as city departments. I'm sure Craig misses lining everybody up for the picture at the end too. So it is quite the excitement in there. As I mentioned, while it's not the same, Our summer reading program, we still hosted everything that we typically have. It's just very different. So we did virtual summer reading programs and participation, and then we continued with the curbside library services for people to get their materials that they needed. So these participants that will be recognizing this evening have gone above and beyond the requirements of the summer reading program by exploring new titles, authors, subjects, and formats. But to start out, I would like to recognize Megan Tomal. She's the 2020 graduate from the Richmond High School. She drew this year's caricature known as Sir Fred. I do have the graphic included within the packet for anyone to see. She did a fabulous job with that. So great job, Megan. Thank you for that. So I'm going to take a minute and announce the names of those that have completed. We have 37 recipients this year, and they will all be getting a certificate and a book from the library. So first, we have Luke Ayers, Blake Bjorstad, Micah Bowers, Amelia Delikowski, Dylan Dombrock, Millie Dombrock, Lucy Hahn, Vincent Hahn, Phil Heiser, Zoe Johnson, Madeline Cryer, Scarlett Cryer, Nora Kufis, Elsie Kufis, Jonathan Matson, Allie Matson, Lila McNamara, Evan McNamara, Peyton Moe, Claire Newman, Annie Newman, Joa Overland, Josh Overland, Joshua Popowich, Annette Riviera, Leonette Riviera, Madeline Shalarith, Gabe Shore, Carter Simison, Clara Simison, C. Tate, Annie Tate, Dean Tate, Ellie Trapp, Easton Trapp, Emma Trotmiller, and Addie Trotmiller. So again, I would like to congratulate everybody. They can start picking up their prizes tomorrow at the library during our open hours, or you can definitely contact us and we can schedule a time for curbside pickup as well.
Does anybody have any questions for Jennifer?
I just want to ask Jennifer the challenges that, it's in your report, but specifically what you saw as challenges from young people, particularly because of not being able to get into the library, or it just wasn't very easy, obviously. The library was closed for a period of time. It's interesting the amount of effort that these folks put forward in a much more difficult environment. But did you have a sense of that from the people who participated?
Absolutely. Our participation is down a little bit this year, as you probably could tell. But those that did participate were excited about it, and still this gave them something to do. Continued reading, continued to do new things through our challenge in the summer reading program.
Well, I just thank you for the work that you're doing and all your staff over at the library. Very challenging times, but it's a lifeline for many people in the community. So good job. Congratulations.
Job well done.
Thank you, guys.
First time we've had a live shot from an outside for a council meeting.
Yeah.
So, pretty cool. Item 7.2, zoning ordinance amendment, table 3, mini storage ordinance 544.
Good evening, Mayor Horn and City Council. This agenda item is in regards to a text amendment to the City of New Richmond zoning ordinance as it relates to mini storage. Currently, mini storage is allowed as a principal use of a property in the Z3 and Z7 zoning districts in the City of New Richmond. The proposed amendment would change this so that mini storage would only be allowed in the Z7 industrial zoning district. This is consistent with our comprehensive plan. When you look at most of our Z3 corridors, these are really along North Knowles, South Knowles, and along the Highway 64 corridor, which are really prime areas for commercial, office, or residential properties of a higher design standard. And whereas most communities, when it comes to mini storage, this is more of an industrial type of use, more consistent with warehousing, and would be more in a business and technical park, or in the case in Richmond, it could even be up more by the airport. This went to the Plan Commission in late 2019. We currently have 2 mini storage businesses that are located on property in a Z3 zoning designation. Those businesses are allowed to continue. They're essentially grandfathered in. They can maintain their property. They continue their operations as they currently are. City staff did reach out to those 2 businesses just to see if they had any questions or concerns. Included in your packet is a draft ordinance number 544, and the recommendation from the Plan Commission and from the DRC would be to approve the ordinance as presented. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
So the existing 2 units, the businesses that are out there, are they able to expand on land that they currently own? Or are they kind of frozen to what they currently are at?
So both properties really do not have the space on their property, just based on lot coverage requirements, setbacks, etc. They would not be able to, purchase land adjacent to their property, to expand. They would be allowed to rebuild if they needed to, but they wouldn't be able to intensify the use or expand the use.
And I know there was a gentleman on the north side of 64 who was contemplating putting one in. Have we reached out to him prior to this?
Yeah, so we've spoken with him a few times. He had wanted to know, could current Z3 properties be grandfathered in that weren't currently developed, but in the future, if they wanted to have that. We had some discussions about the difference between, a property that may have a storage shed versus a mini storage type of use that's being leased out to tenants. So I had some conversations with him. I'd say he was not a huge fan of the proposed change, but it's something that we did have multiple conversations with him about it.
Yeah, and obviously he's not here tonight. Anybody else have any questions?
This is Alderman Kraft. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding. So the amendment, the purpose for the amendment is because how it's currently written, and the zoning ordinance, correct me if I'm wrong, Noah, was written before the comprehensive plan was done. So it just isn't necessarily in line with the direction that the comprehensive plan was going, correct?
Yes, that's correct. So our current zoning ordinance went into effect in 2015, whereas the comprehensive plan was approved a few years after the fact. And so really it's trying to make sure that the comprehensive plan is consistent with the zoning ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we approve ordinance 544.
Suspend the rules.
And suspend the rules.
All right, there is a motion to approve ordinance 544 and along with the suspension of the rules. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Call the roll.
Alderman Kittle,
Yes.
Alderman Lindell,
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier,
Yes.
Alderman Montello,
Yes.
Alderman Volkert,
Yes.
Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
That motion passes. Item 7.3, downtown facade grants, Sophocles Properties. And I apologize for butchering the name.
Good evening, Mayor Horn and City Council. I'll give us some brief background information about this, and I believe Mike Darrow may also kind of chime in a little bit as well. Just for some background information, the City of New Richmond's had a downtown facade program for several years. This can incentivize improvements to buildings for things like painting, awnings, windows, doors, brickwork, as long as it's consistent with our zoning ordinance and with the character of the historic downtown. Typically, these improvements will fund 25% of a project up to $5,000 per property. And the program works as a reimbursement. And so the applicant would bring the proposed project to the city. They would give their approval. They would have 1 year to complete the work. And then once the project is completed, they submit copies of their invoices showing that their contractors have all been paid. And then the city would reimburse, again, 25% of the project cost. We met with the owners of Sophocles Properties in early 2020. Prior to COVID-19, they had expressed some interest at that time in pursuing two different facade projects, one to Champs and then one to the property located at 125 East 3rd Street. This was the former radio station building. This would be just to the west of the Dr. Epley office, kind of near the, across the street from Gwen Venable. The two projects that they had discussed, one was for windows and doors for Champs. A lot of our downtown buildings, the windows and doors are pretty old, energy inefficient. A lot of times truck goes by, you can hear them kind of clinking when the vehicle goes by. And then the project for the property on East 3rd was for painting, awnings, doors, signage. I believe they currently have 6 small businesses in that building. You may have seen You've Got Maids with some of those vehicles. They're one of the tenants in that building. In March of 2020, as one of our financial measures due to COVID-19, we had eliminated the downtown facade budget for the year. And in July, the owners recontacted city staff and said, hey, we are still going to look at moving forward with this project. Is there any chance the city would consider having the facade program? And we thought it'd be best to bring it to the council. So happy to answer any questions. If it's something the council would like more time to consider, we can always table that as well tonight. But I'm just looking for some guidance to give these property owners. Typically with the facade program, once if they can't get approval retroactively, so a property owner couldn't paint their building and then come to us a month later and say, hey, can you give me money for that? They kind of have the blessing from the city, so to speak, before the work begins. So happy to answer any questions that you might have. And Mike Darrow, if you had anything you wanted to add to it as well, feel free.
Well, Noah, before, go ahead, Carrie.
Thank you. Noah, I wanted to check. I know that this is just specifically for the properties that you indicated, but would this approval potentially reopen the entire program to other businesses in the downtown area that might be eligible? I think that's really important for me in terms of making a determination and then thinking about the potential budget impact that it has.
Yeah, and that's something really the council would have to decide. Does that open it up to other businesses that may have postponed projects? What happens if another project would come forward, next week, for example? Would we take it by a case-by-case basis, or is it best saying, we made the decision for this year not to fund those, and we stick with that decision? So is a difficult one, just in light that, we are making efforts to help local businesses, and in this case, projects that also employ local contractors. But, does it set a precedent, or is there a concern then about, the other 50 businesses in the downtown that may then choose to apply or may have postponed a project? So can definitely see it both ways.
Yeah,
to
I would be
echo-
concerned just about the equity to make sure that any business that is downtown and would potentially qualify for this would open the opportunity for other applications. And so I kind of feel like the decision really is, are we in a position to free up that money that was previously frozen because of the uncertainty of COVID-19? Do you have a number, Noah? What was the total budget number for the facade grants for the year?
Yeah, so the downtown budget for 2020 was $20,000. About $10,000 was earmarked for the facade grants. Other portions of that would go towards things like the flowers, winter decor, some of those other more streetscape improvements. But about $10,000 was earmarked for the facade grants in particular. In some cases, again, depending when they start and complete the project, sometimes the project may get approved in 1 year and it may not be completed until the following year. So sometimes the funds aren't actually expended until the following year. But $10,000 was allocated for that. The projects proposed on the agenda this evening, if those were approved, that 25% number would be just under $7,000. So the majority of the funds that were earmarked
Would be expended if we approved this project.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. But other businesses were under the impression that there was not an opportunity to apply, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Alderman Kraft, I think you make some good points, and my recommendation is that this gets tabled until the work session in a couple weeks. I'm challenged by the idea that the money's out of the budget. So it's not just this is money we have earmarked for this. We don't. Number one. And number two, Noah, correct me if I'm wrong, but if this was a non-COVID year, the Downtown Historic Preservation Committee is the one who would be hearing this and, in fact, awarding the grant. Is that correct?
Correct. Typically, this would just go to historic preservation. In this case, we felt because of it was a COVID-19, financial related matter, we didn't want to take it to historic preservation if the funds weren't even available. We felt that was really a council decision in this particular case.
Well, it seems to me that it would be appropriate for us to table this for a couple weeks. And then I would say the question to the council should be whether or not we want to put the money in the budget for this year. It's already come out. And then if the council decides to have the money in the budget, then let historic preservation do their thing and answer the yes or no question. The council doesn't do these. We don't make these decisions normally. That hasn't been the practice. But anyhow, that's the thoughts that I have.
And then Noah, so in that look back period, so basically you were saying that the council or the historic preservation would have to give their approval prior to start of the project. Is that a city rule, or is there's no state or federal rules in that? That's our own rule that we put in place?
Yep, that's just a city requirement. It's just a city program. Programs like a loan program through, regional business funds, those kind of have their own parameters.
Yeah.
Where this is just a city facade grant program, so the rules are determined by the city.
The main reason I asked that question is I know Champs is looking at, they've already got the bids, they want to get going on it, but they were holding off for the council or, someone to make a decision. So maybe that's something, as we discussed at at the work session, is maybe easing that restriction so not to hinder other construction. We want to encourage as much construction, as much jobs we can get done during this COVID period. I guess that's something I would throw out to the council. If not only Champs, but if we open this back up and other businesses that would qualify but have already started, maybe there's some consideration if we go down that road. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Mr. Mayor, with that in mind, I'm going to make a motion that we table this discussion to the work session, and that while this is not a commitment to fund the program, that question has to be answered. But in this particular case, that if Sophakises would like to get started, this would be this particular case. If we're able to make the money available and they're awarded the grant, this could be a look back. I don't know what the right terminology is, but that's this particular case alone that we would grant them. So if they want to get started, they go ahead and they can. I mean, that's the intent of this motion, but fully understanding there is no commitment from the city. This is a question that we're going to look to answer in the next 2 weeks. Yeah. So that's my motion.
All right. So there's a motion to table with these particular properties not being penalized if they go ahead and start prior to the council having their discussion at the next work session. Is that a good summary?
Correct. That's correct.
Is there a second to that motion?
That motion.
All right, and we have Carrie for the second. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, call the roll.
Here.
Alderman Lindell.
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Alderman Volkert.
Yes.
Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
Alderman Kittle.
Alderman Kittle.
Yes.
Thumbs up. I'm going to interpret that as a yes. All right, that motion passes. Item 7.5 is the 7.4, my apologies. Nature Center to Doar Prairie Restoration Trail Construction bids.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, we advertised for bids for construction of the Nature Center to Doar Prairie Trail that was to be constructed this year, funded in part through the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Grant Program. We received 6 bids on the project, the low bid coming from Albrights and Excavating. The bids, I think, were competitive, particularly for this time of year and given kind of the complexities of the work along the river and that type of thing. About $20,000 lower than the original estimate in the DNR grant application. So we're recommending approval of the or award of the contract to Albrights and Excavating in the amount of $255,214.25. And we'll bring back at the work session a few more action items on this related to the easements required on the project.
Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion to approve the recommendation awarding the contract to Albrights and Excavating in the amount of $255,214.25.
All right, we have a motion to approve with the bid of $255,214 and a couple of cents. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Call the roll.
Alderman Weinmeier.
Yes.
Alderman Montello.
Yes.
Alderman Volkert.
Yes.
Alderman Kraft.
Yes.
Alderman Kittle.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Alderman Lindell.
No.
All right, the motion does pass 5-1. Item 7.5 is Public Works surplus equipment.
Mayor and Council, the Public Works Committee reviewed the attached list in the memo of items that staff had identified to be disposed of as surplus equipment. I can entertain any questions if there are any on that list of equipment. We're recommending that the council declare these items as surplus, and they would be sold via public auction.
Jeremiah, do you have a sense of what the surplus equipment might be worth?
I would all of it in total.
Yes,
Mike. I would guess between 10,000 to 20,000, something in that neighborhood.
Mayor Fred and Mayor Fred and the rest of the council, I just wanted to note we did put before the Public Works Committee the city vehicle. That's the vehicle that the city uses. So our thought is that the council did authorize approval of the purchase of a new vehicle in 2020. Obviously, we're not going to purchase that this year. We wanted to see what we could get through an auction. So just in case there was any questions with that vehicle.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to offer a motion that we approve declaring this public works surplus equipment, the list that's been provided to us.
All right, so there's a motion to approve the declaration. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Call the roll.
Alderman Montello?
Yes.
Alderman Volkert?
Yes.
Alderman Kraft?
Yes.
Alderman Kittle? Alderman Lindell?
Yes.
Alderman Weinmeier?
Yes.
All right, and that motion passes. Item 7.6 is face masks.
Mayor Fred and Council, on this one, the city is going to be ordering masks for employees, stakeholders, council, those in the community through the Routes to Recovery grant that we got. So police, fire, every department, it'll say hashtag New Richmond Strong on those, similar to what the school is.
And so just a clarification, when you're saying ordering face masks, it's the order of the physical masks, not an order that you must be wearing them, which is covered under the governor's order.
Yep. No, this is physically ordering some for our employees, council, and so forth. We anticipate, do we know when? Sometime in the next month or so that we'll have those. So just no action required, just an update if you see those in and around the community.
Anybody have any questions? All right, very good. Item 7.7 is the 2020 second quarter financial report.
So in the absence of Ran, I'll take this one, Mayor Fred and Council. If you do have specific questions on the second quarter financial statement, I know Ran would be happy to answer any of those when she's back. But as of June 30th, we had $3.4 million in revenue, accounting for 48% of the budget. And that's trending at our 5-year average. Revenue shortfalls are projected at $255,000, but we've anticipated those through the offset of reduction in expenditures, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Building permit revenue through the second quarter remains stable at $158,000, slightly higher than 2019. So we want to thank our developers and contractors. Room collection through the second quarter in 2020 is also stable, and it's not about the same pace as last year. However, we do anticipate a little bit of a lag in reporting, and so we're not clear. We'll probably see a little dip in the third quarter. As we mentioned during the first quarter and presented in March, the city has taken swift action to reduce expenditures. Right now, we're trending at about 8.6% less than the same time last year. Continuation of these cost containment strategies through the end of the year is projected to reduce expenditures by about $500,000. Debt and investments are trending about the same as they were in the first quarter. And again, credit to the council's action for directing staff to reduce and streamline, and so we are on pace to that regard. That's all I have.
Right. Anybody have any questions?
I just wanted to, Mike, you made a comment. You're talking about room tax, and there's the lag in reporting. Her report does say that the forecast is actually for $55,000 less.
Yep.
This year than previous year, so it's substantial.
We anticipate that, and I know Rand's been reaching out to our providers and Bev as well, our treasurer, and so we will see some type of that dip in the third quarter, we anticipate.
Any questions? Right. Item 7.8 is the 2020 grant update.
So I can take this one as well. We wanted to highlight, so no action on this, and it kind of segues into what we were just talking about for the second quarter grants. And this is I think, a good culmination of a lot of staff who have been involved in addition to the expenditures in reducing costs and streamlining. The city has been aggressive in looking at grants during this pandemic. Folks from the library and Beth Thompson's team, New Richmond Fire and Rescue, Michelle, the library, Jennifer, a lot of folks from Public Works to even the airport and administration. So this really is just a state of where things are at through the second quarter as it relates to some of the grants that the city has received. Mary Park Fishing Grant, the boat launch, Jefferson Marshall Road Grant, North 4th Street Grant through Wisconsin DOT. On the fire side, DNR Forest Protection Grants, the SAFER grant through New Richmond Fire and Rescue. We've received $5,285 as part of the Federal CARES Act to assist with elections. And then the library, you can see a host of different grants from Kiwanis Club, Friends of the Library, Annie Mae Foundation, and Bosch. And then the routes to recovery, as he indicated, some of the funding for things like masks and those types of things are reimbursed through those funds as well. That's all I have.
Very good. Any questions from anyone?
Mr. Mayor, I have a question I think best directed to Jeremiah. What's the plan for the boat landing at Mary Park? What's going to change? Is Jeremiah still with us?
Yep, I'm still here. I can't get my video to work right now. Put a design together with consultant MSA a couple years ago to reconstruct a concrete boat launch location. It would be the layout of it would be a little different than what's there right now, in that it would be a turn to kind of enter the water at a skewed angle, so that we kind of preserve some elevation and not go in at such a steep slope like the alignment does right now.
Okay. But no mediation for, I mean, I don't know if you've ever put a boat in there, but it's nasty. You pull your boat out of there, you got to pressure wash it.
Yeah.
It's just,
I'm sorry. I think some of that has to do with the design of the piers that were used when both the boat launch and the fishing pier were put in. They used floating dock that essentially it doesn't have any space underneath it for the debris to be able to get through. So as it comes down the channel, it piles up against that pier, and then that's right where the boat launch is. So that's a good point. So one of the things we would do as part of that is, the pier would be suspended above the water, so that we're not, essentially catching that debris there.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
There any other questions? All right. Item 7.9 is the 2021 healthcare process.
Mayor and council, at the July meeting, we talked about moving into the 2021 budget with going out and doing some direct select for brokerage services. We invited Mike Montello and Carrie Kraft to assist us with that. We did do interviews, and we appreciate those firms that did interview. Based on our interview process, we are recommending to continue with J. Counter for the next year of brokerage service for our health insurance, and we'll be pending that approval this evening, bringing some scenarios before the council in the next month or two.
I think the comment that I want to make to the rest of the council is, and to anybody that's listening, in fact, healthcare costs represents a substantial part of the city's total budget, and kind of is the case everywhere. Those costs are going up, and in some cases dramatically. That's going to, you can see a day very soon when it's going to take some hardcore out-of-the-box thinking to find ways to make that that it works in a budget. I won't say budget friendly, just that it works in the budget. And I think that the discussion of the broker right now, just because of the timing situation, is probably the super important part of staying where we're at today, as we look to tackle a very challenging subject. So for what that's worth.
But I appreciate your effort, and Carrie, with especially with your background, and Mike with your background with numbers and stuff. I appreciate both of your efforts into this on behalf of the council.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
A lot of work, I understand. So I'm thankful that you guys have stepped forward. Any other questions?
Mr.
Right.
Mayor, I'd like to know, we're going to address this at the session. Is that true?
I didn't hear.
What was the question, Clerk?
Yes, on the health
We're going to
insurance.
address this issue at the work session at the end of the month.
We're going to talk about it at the work session.
Health insurance. Yes, we are. Yes.
But,
And we'll
I would
talk
think,
about-
yeah, I think it's fair to say, Kirk, it's continued dialogue. I wish we could address it and it would just be done. But yes, it's going to be ongoing dialogue, I would imagine, for the I'm going to say for the foreseeable future, we're going to be talking about it. So that's a good
Okay.
question, though.
All right. Thank you.
You are welcome. Any other questions? All right. Item 8 is communications miscellaneous.
Mr. Mayor, I would like our city clerk to just talk about this event that's going to go on at City Hall tomorrow.
I was going to bring it up.
And sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
Quite all right.
But folks have asked the question, and the clerk's already been prepared for this, about why does it take so long to get results. So, Michelle, you want to just chat about that?
I can. So tomorrow is the partisan primary. Polls open at 7 a.m. and they stay open till 8 p.m. We will be set up in the south parking lot again for folks who are requesting to vote curbside from their vehicle. They'll follow the cones and pull in, and an election official will meet them at their vehicle and get them checked in and bring them a ballot. Or folks who want to walk in and sign the poll book themselves will do that right here in council chambers. Simultaneously, we will be opening and recording or counting each ballot that was sent by absentee, and that is over 900 ballots. So those are the machines that's sitting right in front of you, Mike, and the process, the process of an absentee ballot is 2 election judges take that out, They enter it into the poll book. They then open it and feed it into the machine, which they'll have to do 900 times, and simultaneously voters will be coming through to put their ballots in. So it really is how many minutes does it take to open a ballot and insert it in the reader. So they'll start at 7 a.m. and go until it's done. So they're not always done, depending on how the day goes and how many voters come in person, at 8 o'clock right on the dot to record those and send those results to the county.
I think it's super important for folks to understand how the process works. Your absentee balloting has grown dramatically with the coronavirus, and who knows, it may be part of a bigger part of future elections. And I think there's the idea of the integrity of the absentee ballot. I know I've had folks ask me, don't they count those? You could have gotten absentee ballots a couple weeks ago.
Right.
And people wonder, well, don't they count those when they get them? And your answer is, it's all done tomorrow.
Correct.
And that's the rules.
Correct.
And there is potentially an issue that you could conceivably not be able to report tomorrow based on how many absentee ballots requests you filled. But the absentee ballots technically they just have to be postmarked by tomorrow.
No, they have, it was overturned by the Supreme Court. So in one of the elections this year, there was a 10-day period that was the case, but it is not the case for this. So the ballot has to be in our hands by 8 p.m. tomorrow.
Oh, so it does have to be here.
Be in line to hand it in by 8 p.m. And so, but if you can imagine, you get a last-minute surge of ballots that you then have to open and record.
But in any event, and I understand the lateness of the hour, all of that, but obviously, other than that, we should have election results sometime by late tomorrow night or early the hours of the next day, however.
We should, and in New Richmond, we send those results to the county, and the county updates the results on their website. So folks looking for the numbers should check in at the St. Croix County page.
And just one last thing, Michelle, and I'm not going to ask you about the spring, but I will ask you after the election. I'm curious how many requests you get for absentee ballots that are returned. I'm guessing it's not 100%.
Correct. It's been around 10%
that don't come back.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
And if people are holding on to a absentee ballot tonight,
yep,
they should not drop it in the mailbox. They should drop it here at City Hall tomorrow.
Correct. They can bring it to our drop box at Arch Avenue. They can bring it to the drop box in the back parking lot, or they can hand it right to an election official.
Very good.
Yep.
All right. Any other communications?
Mr. Mayor, I have two things. First of all, Rosario just hit a grand slam home run for the Twins, and they're ahead of the Brewers. If you want to know that. More importantly, I wanted to ask Michelle, what efforts are undertaken to authenticate absentee ballots? How's that done?
So, can you tell me more about why you're asking or what you're looking for? I mean, there is a whole process that's followed by the election officials.
Well, okay, that's what I'm ignorant of. So I want to know what stops someone from sending in an absentee ballot for their recently deceased parent.
Okay.
How would you catch them?
Yeah, so it would be every ballot is checked in as if that person is there. And so they have to be a registered voter. The process really of validating the ballot happens before I send it out. And so the process of requesting an absentee ballot, I have to see a photo ID on every requested ballot.
Okay.
So it's checked at the front end. But then again, when a ballot comes back in, the election officials are running it through our Badger books, which are attached to the WisVote Wisconsin Elections Commission system. But I do something to maintain that database every single day, whether it be update because a notice of a deceased voter, a move, all kinds of stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Anytime.
Any other communications or questions? And I think they're all great questions. I think that the public has a lot of questions about absentee ballots, so I think it's great to have these questions aired out publicly here. So, any other communications? All right. How about an adjournment?
Something.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn. Oh, was somebody talking?
Craig Kittle had tried to say something a minute ago.
Hey, Craig, the floor is yours.
I was just wondering if you could hear me.
We heard that.
Very good.
Okay. Can I second the motion to adjourn?
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
Recording has stopped.